All right, guys, what's up? Well, today we're doing a video and I'm pretty excited because our first pack of new arrows arrived. And this is a preview of them from the company Grizzly Stick. And I'm going to show you why we went with these and how they're different from what we were using. So to do that, the first thing to start off is once we finished the last video, I went on to Google and just simply typed in our issue, arrow not penetrating deer, and went from there. And upon a couple searches in, I ran into the Ashby bow hunting website, and it's a foundation, bow hunting foundation, and it talked about all these things that that this guy, Dr. Ashby, had. It's like 12 different characteristics of better penetrating arrows. So we went down that list, and I said, all right, I'm gonna find an arrow that fits with that list. So pretty quickly, typing in, Dr. Ashby arrow, I came up with the company Grizzly Stick and went through their website and decided to order a test pack of arrows, which was pretty nice because I could try them out before spending the money and getting a whole bunch of them. And so there's a couple different spines, and I called them and talked about my setup, what I wanted to hunt, stuff like that. And they were very knowledgeable. And they got me set up with two different spines, which is the bendiness, like this, of the arrow, and for my draw weight. And so we've got a 240, and the other one I got, which isn't going to be in the video, was I think a 320. And I got a bunch of different weight test heads as well to kind of match up with broadheads. And we kind of shot them. And I'm going to go over the results here in a second as well. So let's just start with the old arrow. This is our old arrow, and I've broken my powder scale out from the long range shooting I do to kind of measure the weight of them, which I'm going to pull the little powder tray and everything off and re-zero it. Actually, there we go. I'm going to put this is like a broadhead tightener. I'm going to put it on here to hold the arrows while we measure them. I'll go ahead and zero it out. So the first thing is I got each of these arrows set up with a tip weight. This is the arrow we shot, but without the broadhead on it, just so it's not sharp. But I got an equal amount of weight on the tip. And I'm gonna go ahead and same thing on these. I got the amount of weight I have right now on the tip there, and I'll talk about that in a second, but go ahead and measure it here. And I got the center of gravity on this arrow marked as well. If I can get it to stay. There we go. And did I zero it? There we go. Yes, I did. Cool. Stable. All right. As you can see, our whole arrow setup, including the broadhead that we were using, was 300 and let's just call it 370 grains, 368.4. And this new setup, total arrow weight here, with this, this is a 200 grain point, and I gotta find the balance point. It's right about here. I didn't mark it on this one yet. Here we go. Sweet. Let me make sure it was 0 too, because I think I hit the button. This does get off. You put a lot of force on it, so that's why I want to double check. Oop. There we go. So this whole new arrow setup with the 200 grain is 647.5. So it's almost double the weight. I guess not quite double, but it's got an extra about 300 grains on it. Just kind of rounding here. And the other thing as well is, where would we say that balance point was? Right about here. And I'm going to hold these up. So you can see the difference in balance point, and it's quite a ways. I'm going to go ahead and just put a little mark in this. Here's a pencil. Perfect. That way we can find it later. So when I went through the Ashby website, I had a couple things, and the biggest ones being the weight of the arrow. It said the minimum weight of the arrow for just guaranteed penetration should be about 650 grains, which this one comes really far away, and this one is right about 650 grains. So, that's the package I bought, was the 650 grains, sorry, with the 200 grain tip. So that's why we have that heavy arrow. The other thing is it talked about forward center of gravity, and they want about between, let's see, actually I can pull it up because I don't quite remember. So the website says it wants a center of gravity between about 20 and 30% of the arrow. Basically, 0 being dead center and 30% forward of that is where you want to be, or 30% back, my bad. So in order to do that, they also, there's a lot of math you could do, but they have a little thing that's a calculator on Grizzly Sticks website, which was pretty nice. And it says enter the total length and the balance point, and it will tell you the forward center, how far forward the center of gravity is. So let's start with the old arrow, since that's what we shot last time. It up again and measure it. And that's going to be about 18 point, let's just call it 6 inches. So I'm going to type in 18.6 and press calculate. And it's going to give us a FOC of 10%. So that's it. That's all that we're forward is 10% from the middle of the arrow. So honestly, that's half of the minimum value that the disregard clinging that the Ashby reports say. And I didn't give you a whole lot of background, but Ashby, I guess, hunted all over the world, hunted a lot of stuff, and he took notes as he did it on what worked and what didn't. So a lot of his data is backed up with a kind of real world experience. So I figure that's a pretty good place to kind of start and go from. So this is our new arrow. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Valley of the Knock here. Grab my tape measure and go all the way down full length, and I'm at about 31.5, which I know the broadheads are going to be a little longer, but it shouldn't be too noticeable, and I can run that with the broadheads as well. So this one is 31.5, and the balance point that we marked here in pencil is now at 22.5 inches. So let's see what the difference is here. So 21. So we're over the minimum threshold of 20%. So 20 to 30 is what we want. The higher the better, it kind of seemed like. So, that's pretty good. We've now met that criteria. And we got our arrow at 650 grains. So that's good. The other list was, it has to be structurally sound and hold up, when it hits the animal. So, which these are some pretty thick shafts. They're carbon fiber. They should do the trick. And they got a full length taper, which was the other thing, is that you want and it's easier on the broadhead. You can see this one bulges a little bit, but this is like the furl, I guess is what they call in it. I'm kind of still new to the terms, but you want it to basically taper from the furl all the way down and keep tapering to the knock end of the arrow. And that way there's no friction, or a lot less friction as the shaft goes in. So we've met kind of all those criteria with it. There's a couple other items, and I'll read them off in a second for you. So that we should be meeting the criteria we were kind of looking for with these. So I ordered a test pack, and I went and shot them, and I got a whole pack of, where are they? Here we go. Test kit, and it's just assorted field point sizes. I got the 200 here, and I also got a 315, which I want to talk about while we're doing the math on these arrows. And I kind of shot the 315. So they have the spine values, and the 320 was pretty weak, and the 240 was a little strong. One way to kind of weaken the spines is to put heavier weights on them, or lengthen them, which I don't want to lengthen them. And I'll show, basically what I do is, the way I cut my arrow, or chose what length to cut it, was I just went an inch over my draw length, which when I'm out, it puts the arrow tip right about here, and when it's in the bow, it's like that. And that way, if I reach up, I don't hit the broadhead, because I just didn't want to have to worry about that or think about it. So it keeps my fingers clear of all the sharp edges. So I just kind of like it like that. So I like the length. I don't want to mess with the length. So I had to do something else. And I can either add weight to the knock end, or they make 315 grain broadheads as well. So I put on the 315 grain field point, and it hit a lot more consistently in the center. It just flew nicer, which I know a lot of you that probably watching this that are like 315 grains, it's quite a bit. It is quite a bit. So let me talk about the arrow, and let me talk to you about why we're actually going to be going with the 315 and what tests I did to kind of come to that determination. Let's see. All right, so right about right here. Where's my pencil? There we go. And there's our Valley of the Knock again. That's up here at 24 inches. So 24, I'm gonna hit calculate, and that's 22. So we got another basically 2%-ish, 1.5%, 2%. And so that kind of helps me. It keeps it farther forward. The 315 grain broadheads are foraged. They don't have any screws or anything on them, which I kind of liked. Especially, you know, I'll give you the disclaimer, this isn't the cheapest route to go forward with this, but kind of after our experience on the last one, I definitely wanted something completely put together. I didn't want to be trying to experiment with stuff. I wanted to know what worked and get what worked to kind of and then, you know, go from there. If we want to try like lightening up something, we can later. But honestly, this thing, it flew very, very nice. It's like a dart. It was just straight out. I think actually when I talked to them, they said they wanted to fly like a missile, and it did. It was very hard hitting. 315 grain on these. Oop, going the wrong way there. There we go. As you can see, we're up at 760 grains. So we're over that 650 grain threshold. Instead of being right around it, we're well over it, 110 grains past it, which is good because we want that momentum to transfer into our target. The other thing is sharpness wise. So the 315 grain broadheads are going to be about this size. And I went ahead, and when I got these, I wanted just to kind of test them and see if I liked them. And so what I did was I took the receipt from they call them second runs. They didn't quite make the cut. Maybe they're a little lighter, a little heavier. Maybe they didn't come out sharp, or the edges, you know, it was angled. Something didn't just line up with their standards. So they were selling these. And I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and just get some, and I'll see how they show up. And they showed up pretty sharp, and I've been pretty impressed with them. So that's another reason I chose to go this route with this company. It was very well put together. The edges are very, very smooth, and I got myself earlier a little bit, but they're like razor sharp. And what I did was I took this brand new broadhead with no sharpening and just ran it, and I literally cut this paper. I hope you guys can see this. Just all I did was hold it like this and just take it and run it down, and that's how it cut. It's like I think scissors aren't even this sharp. It is pretty crazy. I took the old broadhead and did the same thing, and I tried to cut diagonally with it, and it didn't cut diagonally, and it went down the paper and kind of made a rip. And this is actually the second attempt. And this one I just went straight down with, just like this. And you can see, you know, it's sharp enough to cut the paper, but there's definitely a crazy amount of difference between the two cuts. So that's definitely going to help us out too. And you know, if it cuts good and the edge is smooth, it's going to have a lot less friction going in and drag on it. So that's definitely another plus. So, you know, we want to eliminate as much drag as possible and transfer all that energy where we want to go. So that's why I went with this. We're well over the 650 boundary. We're a pretty decent ways past the minimum. You know, we're off the kind of minimum levels with the 315, and it shot really good out of the bow. I do have a chronograph, which it's down here. I'm not going to pull it out and show you, but I shot these arrows the way we had them set up when we went hunting, out of the bow into through the chronograph, and then I shot the new arrows with the 200s and the 315s out of it. And I'll be honest, you know, I'm definitely well below the speed of our old arrow. The old arrow came in at about 285 feet per second, which I don't know the miles per hour, and I'm not going to do the math on it. But if you want to do the math, you know, it's quite a few miles per hour. And so I was like, dang, so that's quite a bit. And you can already tell with the 200 grain points on these, they had slowed down quite a bit. So I shot it out of the bow, and we got about 210 feet per second with the new arrow with the 200 grain. And then I started shooting the 315s. Like, I'll test that out as well. I got about 187 feet per second. So it's not a whole lot when you consider in terms of momentum and energy, just a couple feet per second. Now, the question you guys are probably asking is, don't you get a lot more energy with the faster one? And the answer is yes, but since it doesn't weigh as much, momentum's going to come into key here. And, when we hit the deer last time, it's just like, yeah, it was pretty flat shooting. It hit it fast, and it hit it with a lot of energy, more energy than these new ones are probably going to have. But however, the momentum on these new ones, especially, 760 grains, quite a bit. It's going to be a lot higher than the old arrow setup. And the other thing too is being so light, you can accelerate these really fast, which is why they go really fast. But the other side of that is you can decelerate them equally as fast, which is kind of what happens. So it's not going to transfer that energy that it has into the deer or animal as much as something that's heavier. It's going to want to keep its speed and push through the target. That's the momentum. And it's not going to want to change its speed as fast as the old arrows. And so that's kind of what will help us. It'll keep its energy, especially if we hit bone or something. And you can kind of see the difference in these broadheads too, which is another reason we went with these. Is this one's got 3. It's a very wide wedge. It's like trying to shove a wedge like through wood. Like if you've ever split wood with a wedge, hit it and drive it in. It takes quite a bit of effort. And this is like an axe. It's just going to slice. And they each got their uses, but the nice thing with these two is, if you can see, they've only got an edge on one side of them. So they're called single bevel. And what that does is when it hits the target, this side right here, nothing's going to be pushing on this side, but this side's angled. So it's going to try to push over that meat or that bone that it hit. And that little push is going to keep a twisting motion, which if you look at the fletchings on this arrow as well, see if you can line you up. It's got a little twist in it, like right hand twist. And that's going to start twisting this. So when it hits, it's going to try to, this is going to drive in, create that little pressure on this side and keep twisting, which should help it get through the bone by kind of cracking as it slides in. Ooh, that was close. Don't do that. Be very careful. And kind of pushing as it slides in, and that'll let it keep going through. And it's also sharper, trying to wedge this compared to this into something is going to be a lot easier, because this I got to make a big kind of circle almost, where this is a very flat slice. It's a single bevel thing from their website, which it makes sense to me, so I figured I'd try it. The other thing I kind of like about these is they're resharpenable. They're very thick, so they're going to be durable. They're thicker than these blades are by quite a bit. So I like the fact I can reuse them, especially, it's a pretty good amount of money for them. So having something reusable is a really nice kind of thought in my mind. Works. They seem to have a lot of success stories and pictures to back up what they're saying, and kind of from what I've seen, and especially from watching the video of the deer we shot and seeing the arrow kind of just stop, a lot of the things make sense to me as well about just keeping that momentum and reducing the friction, making sure it has the best possible chance of getting in. So yeah, I'm excited to see how they work. I ordered 6 of these arrows. The only difference between them is I got the 315 grain instead of the 200. And on the back, I kept the same feathers, the fletchings. I don't know why. I could have got these little 2-inch ones like this in a twist, but I chose just to kind of do the feathery ones, the longer ones. I figure since there's more weight out there, having a little bit more surface area to kind of help control that in the wind and stuff would kind of be beneficial, and I like the look better. So that kind of played a big part. I like the feathers. But the other thing I had them put on was a vinyl wrap that it looks like it's reflective. I'm not sure, but it's bright yellow. And that way they're easier to find, because we did have quite a bit of trouble finding our arrow afterwards. So I figure making it as visible as possible is definitely going to be nice. As well as a lighted knock. That way I could see the path better. So if I do go back and have to watch the video to see kind of how we hit the deer, it's going to be a lot easier to see the path of the arrow and make that kind of assessment than just kind of guessing what happened was the arrow hit the target. And so I did have them install the lighted knocks. They did do it probably cheaper than I can, and I don't really know a whole lot about putting arrows together yet, so I figured best let them do it. But yeah, it's a pretty nice setup. Shooting it, I was pretty happy. It's very consistent and stable. It's a lot slower, but I think it's going to make up for that in lethality, and especially since a lot of the shots around here are close enough. That was the best part is at 20 yards it hit in the same spot as the old arrow. At 30 it hit a little bit lower. 40 it hit a substantially amount lower, and that's about the longest shot we're going to be able to take just realistically in this area. So I was like, the trajectory, it doesn't drop off a whole lot. It's a pretty nice setup, especially for hopefully the lethality increase. So I don't know if it's the answer for everything or not, and but I'll let you know as I find out, and kind of maybe if I decide to experiment with it. But when they come in, we'll definitely unbox them and show you what we got. So stay tuned, and yeah, thanks for watching.